Well, in a surprise turn of events, I am happy to report that California's net neutrality law has in fact been resurrected by state lawmakers. Now, again, if it passes, then reportedly it will still be the strongest net neutrality protections in the country. But the way that this story ends, at least up until this point, is very interesting to me because the individual who originally gutted their net neutrality proposal is now basically claiming to be a hero of the movement and is one of the individuals that brought it back to life. So as John Brodkin of Ars Technica reports, a California net neutrality bill that could impose the toughest rules in the country is being resurrected. The bill was approved in its strongest form by the California Senate, but it was then gutted by the State Assembly's Communications Committee, which approved the bill only after eliminating provisions opposed by AT&T and cable lobbyists. Bill author Scott Wiener has been negotiating with Communications Committee Chairman Miguel Santiago and other lawmakers since then, and he announced the results today. Wiener said the agreement with Santiago and other lawmakers resulted in legislation implementing the strongest net neutrality protections in the nation. According to Wiener, the compromise version has all the same protections as the version of the bill that passed the Senate. But the compromise version is structured differently in order to satisfy Santiago's concern about making sure the rules will stand up in court, Wiener told Ars. He wanted a bill that reflected the protections of the FCC's 2015 order and is defensible in court, Wiener said. Those are two things I wanted as well. It was just a matter of having a product that we both agreed got us there. Santiago, Wiener, and other lawmakers appeared at a joint press conference today. Quote, "We are talking about introducing the strongest net neutrality bill in the nation," Santiago said. Santiago said he urged both Democratic-leaning and Republican-leaning states to pass similar legislation. There are a lot of blue states in the country. We expect them to stand up and join us in this fight and pass measures that are equally strong, he said. For red states, I recommend that you follow suit or we are going to flip some of those states, he said. A separate bill that was also included in the negotiations will be amended to focus on requiring ISPs that enter into state contracts adhere to net neutrality principles, the fact sheet said. This provision ensures that public entities only expend taxpayer funds on contracts with ISPs that comply with California's comprehensive net neutrality protections. Now, the bill itself has yet to be released to the public, so we kind of just have to take Wiener's word that it's still strong and that it would be really a game changer in terms of setting the bar high for protecting net neutrality. Now, look, I don't believe that Miguel Santiago, the person who killed this bill and now brought it back, is doing this for altruistic reasons. When he states that he wanted to make sure that, Wiener's bill was more legally defensible, I just don't believe him. He is an individual that took money, thousands of dollars from AT&T, and they've been lobbying hard to kill this legislation. And what did he do? He did exactly what they wanted. They donated to him and they expected a return on that investment, and that's what he gave them. He gave them exactly what they paid him to do. But now, all of a sudden, he's claiming that he supports this bill because it meets his legal criteria. But really, the reason why he did this 180-degree turnaround is because of the overwhelming response from net neutrality activists. They filled up his voicemail systems at all of his offices. They flooded his email inbox. If it weren't for that pressure, do you think he would have honestly decided to come on board as an ally? Of course not. People in California refused to let him do this, and it's because of their activism specifically that they were able to change his mind. I mean, think about this. In 2014, when Obama's FCC chairman Tom Wheeler initially proposed fast lanes, which would have been the death of net neutrality, he ended up leaving office as an ally to us because we put an overwhelming amount of pressure on him. And the same thing is happening with Miguel Santiago. So after just gutting net neutrality a couple of weeks ago, this is what he says now. Quote, "No time in history have we ever demanded this sort of action faced with what we now see at the national level. No time in history do we need an open and free internet like we need it now." So understand that what he's saying is 100% disingenuous. He unilaterally spearheaded this effort to kill their net neutrality bill at the behest of his donor, AT&T, and now all of a sudden, he's being trotted out as this hero and savior to net neutrality. Well, I'm sorry, Miguel, but you don't get to take credit and claim to be a hero for putting out a fire that you started in the first place. That's not the way that this works. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad that he listened to the people, but on an issue like net neutrality, where 83% of the population wants to protect net neutrality, activists shouldn't have even had to put this much pressure on him to begin with. I mean, for a self-proclaimed progressive, we shouldn't have to babysit you and make sure that you don't fuck us over at the behest of your donors. I mean, when corporate Democrats like Joe Manchin, Heidi Heitkamp, Joe Donnelly, and even Doug Jones vote correctly on this issue, but you, a self-proclaimed progressive, fuck us over and make us dedicate weeks trying to get you to change course, you're not a progressive, you're not being genuine here, you're not supporting this for altruistic reasons, you are being career-minded. You're looking out for your own career because you know that if you don't actually come on board with net neutrality, you're going to lose your job because you're being challenged by an individual named Kevin Zhang, who does in fact support net neutrality and opposed what you did to the original bill. Now, again, I'm going to say this to be clear. I'm very happy that he listened to the people. It's always laudable when politicians listen to their constituents. But again, the cynic in me still wants him to be voted out of office because you've got to send a message to lawmakers in other states that ultimately are discussing this issue. If they see that this one lawmaker lost his job because he betrayed net neutrality activists, that sends a powerful message to other state lawmakers who are also considering net neutrality protections. I mean, Scott Wiener is exporting his bill to New York. He's helping them replicate their strong net neutrality protections. Don't you think lawmakers there will be less inclined to gut their version of net neutrality in the same way that Miguel Santiago did in California if they know that they might lose their jobs because of it? So, I mean, look, I think that at the end of the day, what matters is the policy outcome. It looks like they're going to get net neutrality. They have until, I believe, August 31st for it to be voted on and signed into law by Governor Jerry Brown. We'll see what happens. It looks like it's on track to pass, but at the same time, this is the second attempt in California to water down or outright kill this bill because, again, AT&T and internet service provider lobbyists are doing everything in their power to defeat this because they know that this could set a new standard. It could potentially be replicated at other states, and they don't want this to ever get passed. So I wouldn't be surprised if it got watered down again. But this is what I do. If you're in the 53rd District of California, don't vote for Miguel Santiago again. That's certainly what I would do. I would not vote for him if I were in that district because if he was willing to take money from a large multinational corporation and then brazenly do their bidding in an openly corrupt manner, basically a quid pro quo, he's going to do it again on other issues. So we need to teach these politicians a lesson, and the only way they learn is if they lose their jobs. The only way other politicians learn is if their colleagues lose their jobs when they fuck over the people. So this is good news overall. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but understand that this needs to stop happening. Democrats, we should be able to depend on you for issues like net neutrality. If national Democrats got this right, there should be no excuse for state Democrats.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.